A million things I want to talk to you about, but I can't get away without talking about Deshaun. How strange was this for you to then A, know him as a person, uh, B, watch this great player sitting on the sideline all year, C, not know what the league was going to do about him, and B, know that you got to get rid of him?
Well, there's quite a bit to the stomach there, a little bit. As I initially came here as a defensive coordinator last year, of course, I know, I'm a football fan, so I knew who he was. And, of course, he didn't play for us, but he was on the team early on and was around the facility, a little bit. And every time I talked with him, it was just a minimum amount of times, all good. So that's what I know about Deshaun is that as you start relating it to our football team, when you have a special talent like that that's not a part of that team, that was a big void that we were missing last year. And, sometimes divorce is good. And that's my statement that I've made a lot of times when, a split's going to happen and both parties are going to win once it does. Again, I don't know exactly what all happened. The accusations are there, and if they have merit, that will all come out in time. But for our football team, we needed to move on.
All right, welcome into the Cris Collinsworth podcast, coming to you live from Orlando, Florida this time around because my granddaughter has her 4th birthday today as we record this. So I'm getting ready to go over and put my clown nose on and do what I do. So anyway, but the guy I could use to come along with me is a guy that I've known for a long time, Mr. Lovie Smith, who is now the head coach of the Houston Texans. And I couldn't be happier about it. Lovie, how are you, man?
Hey, Cris, life is good. It's good to kind of hear you talk about we have known each other a long period of time. When you talk about being a granddad, I just became a 9-time grandfather, and number 10 is on the way here in another month. So
hello,
that is special there for sure. But life is good down in Houston.
I tell you, so to me, the best part about being a grandparent, they always say, you have the ability to give them back. That's the standard joke.
True.
But my favorite thing is I just lie on the ground and they start jumping on you, and it turns into the biggest brawl of all time. And you take a few shots, you get your eyes poked out a couple of times, you're going to take a few shots to the groin. But that's the highlight for me. What do you like best?
Well, it's so many things. We have 2 sets of twins in there, fraternal and identical. And Cris, one of my 7-year-old twins, daughter, and she may just get on a roll of, modern technology. She can text. Hey, they call me Papa. Papa, I love you. And Maya, I love you. We go back and forth like that. It's just so many things. We're getting ready to take a little bit of time off this summer. Now, between soccer games, flag football, basketball, and it's like the Super Bowl to me, just watching your grandkids perform. So pretty neat.
Oh, I can't wait to get back to 3- and 4-year-old soccer again. That was always one of my favorite things too.
It's something else.
I love it. I just love it. It's the best. You have had quite the journey, my friend. And I was going to ask you, obviously you had time in college football before, but yes, you went back as the head coach of University of Illinois. Yes. And I'd never seen you with a gray beard before that. Was that the cause of it? The NIL, did it finally break your spirit? What happened?
Well, we had a few good moments while we were there, but it was a tough few years to say the least. But no, beard wise, you start getting older and you do things a little differently. I'm celebrating, 42 years, married to the same lady.
Yes.
This coming year, and on vacation one year, you let it go, and she said, I kind of like that a little bit. We pretty much do what our wives tell us to do. So
correct.
I said, you know what? After a while, I kept it up and really haven't gotten rid of it since. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, you have had quite the career. You've been everywhere. You coached in the Super Bowl. You had the great moment with the opening kickoff being returned for a touchdown. And it was about as exciting a thing as I've ever seen when Devin Hester took it back. And Tony Dungy, still to this day, he loves telling the story. Of course, your old partner in crime, Tony. And all week, he just told everybody they weren't going to return it. And then on the day of the game, he said, we're not being like that. We're going to be bold. We're kicking that thing off. And here it comes 100 yards back the other way. You and Tony are close. I mean, you guys are like, philosophically, everything. You guys are close in every way, shape, or form. The old cover two, all the different things. Give me your favorite story out of the Super Bowl and going against Tony.
Well, it's not like that surprised me that, you talk about NFL players now. To have an NFL player say, okay, I'm not good enough and I'm going to bow down to a player, that just doesn't happen very often. So it's not like it surprised us that they would do that. But those times in Chicago, of course, and a lot of fond memories. Of course, Devin is a part of. I got a chance to see Cris, just about every one of his touchdowns that he had. And so that was pretty special that day. And you're always looking for that next Devin Hester. Devin has a couple of boys. So, that talent is definitely in their bloodline still. So we may have to wait a few years before we get another one like him.
We had, I was just watching something on social media today. Tyrann Mathieu's kid took a jet sweep about 90 down the sideline. Oh, yeah. The gene pool does come into play every once in a while, doesn't it?
Well, that's the case. I mean, your boy is the same way. I mean, but that is how it happens. And I've been in it long enough now to think about it, Cris, when you start coaching sons of your former players, and I've had a chance to do that a few times. And of course, even down right now, we have, some bloodlines in our group right now, special guys, and can't wait to see this next generation come around.
I am with you. Well, we have so much to talk about in the league, and it's I'm kind of known for being brutally honest and with what I have to say. And so I'm not going to change here as we go along, but this for you is the beginning of a process, right? I mean, the Texans aren't the Super Bowl favorite this year.
Yeah.
You didn't draft a quarterback, which some people thought you might. You did not. You obviously have a bit of a vision, a long-term vision for the Houston Texans. Can you fill us in on it just a little bit? I mean, what do you see? Because one of the things that people don't understand, and I've explained a couple of times, if I'm not wrong, I think Davis Mills was the #1 recruited quarterback coming out of high school, right? He went to Stanford, I think, and
yes.
Had a couple of knee injuries, something like that. But, what is your plan? What is the vision? What are you thinking about with this football team?
Well, Cris, just, staying on the offensive side, I am a believer in Davis Mills. Being in the defensive coordinator's position last year, I got a chance, and Davis wasn't starting at first. So I got a chance, he went against the #1 defense. So I got a chance to see him in a different role. Got a chance to see he's calm. He can make all of the throws. He's smart. The guys buy into him. So if you just look at, you talk about his background of being a heavily recruited player coming out, going to Stanford, all of that is true. He's a lot better athlete than people give him credit for. So as you start looking at the quarterbacks, each year there's a different group of quarterbacks coming in. We just think ours has a chance to ascend the way others think theirs can. So no, we were all on board with that. Pep Hamilton is our offensive coordinator, and we all agreed that he's the guy that we want to go forward with. And it helps an awful lot when you are, putting your team together, that you feel good about a young quarterback on a rookie contract and all of those things, for us to start working with the rest of our football team. And yeah, you're right. We're not the Super Bowl favorites this year, but we have the foundation is being built the right way, and I think eventually we're going to be able to do some things. It's about the quarterback, Cris, but it's got to be so much more. And we're not going to be a good football team until we start playing better defense. So there's a lot of things that we have to do, and feel like we've been addressing those. I'm talking Nick Cassero and we have a plan, and we feel like it's going to work.
Well, you certainly addressed it right off the bat. Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley were considered 1-2, the quarterback at the cornerback class position. You have the third overall pick. You end up taking Stingley, who had the phenomenal freshman year, right? I mean, it was.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that decision. And was there anybody else that was close in the mix as far as a defensive player, or even an offensive player that was under consideration?
Well, I would say that more of the defensive players were under consideration than the offensive players. We had talked about the quarterback. We feel good about our quarterback. So I feel like the defensive group was what we needed to focus on. There were some other linemen that we really liked a lot, but cornerback, you just look at the way the league is going right now at the cornerback position. Cornerback, it's hard to get, I think, there's how many elite cornerbacks are there out there? And when you can get one at a young age, that's you're going somewhere. You mentioned Sauce Gardner. I loved him. He's going to be a heck of a football player. He's a football junkie. He'll tackle. So we liked him an awful lot too. But we love Derek. We had a chance to bring both guys here, but we just thought Derek was what would, fit us best. You mentioned, what he did earlier in his career. I just look, first off, I'm a trait guy, and Derek can jump as high as anybody. He's as fast as anyone. He's a 6 feet corner that'll tackle. And when you meet him, he's confident. And again, sometimes I met my wife on a blind date. I knew it right then. I went home that night and told my roommate she was the one I was going to marry. And when I met Derek, it just kind of felt right. And I saw him being a part of our team. And when you had a third pick, there's a good chance whatever we want, we're going to get a chance to do. And that's how it happened.
Well, it is interesting that, you come down to a lot of times the great debate on defense for the common man like me usually comes down to edge rusher or cornerback, right?
Yes.
And I think that you can take that one of two ways. If you're going to be a man coverage team, you could have the chance to take away their number one receiver. If you have somebody who's truly an elite pass rusher, they may never get to that number one receiver. There were some good pass rushers in this draft and a few left on the board. Did that ever get close? Did you ever think about that?
Yeah. There were some, and I my background a little bit, it starts up front, D-line. We're a four-man front. They're the engine of our defense. We blitz, but we want to be able to get pressure with our front four. So we liked a lot of the guys there. But I think as you look at the landscape of the NFL right now, it's hard finding corners that we feel fit with what we do. Now, Cris, since we drafted Derek, I've heard an awful lot. Hey, Lovie, why would you guys take him? You guys that's not who you play with. You play with cover two corners. First off, what's the cover two corner? That's a guy that can't cover, I guess. But no, but for us, we play cover two. And we want our corners to be able to tackle, yes, and be tough. But whether we have success or not is going to be based on how we play man coverage. And so we definitely have a place. If you're a great man coverage guy with ball skills, and that's what Derek is. I mean, he can guard anybody one-on-one, but he has ball skills also. And let's start talking football with him and how he sees the game. No, we have a place for an elite athlete that can play man coverage. And I think being in a system where you also play zone only helps him even more.
Hey, most of those cornerback interceptions come from somebody trying to hit it in that, what they call it, the honey hole or whatever in behind that cover two. And those great cornerbacks have a way of turning those into turnovers right there.
Yes, they do. And that's what we think that he can. If we drafted, our defensive back, one of the traits we are looking for, you have to have ball skill. And because it's about the takeaways on the defensive side of the football. Yeah, it's about taking away the number one receiver, but we want eyes on the ball as much as possible, and that's how you win football games.
I've got so much respect for you on so many different fronts, and we've had a lot of conversations, but Bill O'Brien, David Culley, and then the Brian Flores thing happened, and there wasn't a black coach that was being hired until they hired you. I'm sure you were approached a million different times, and this issue is not going away either, right? I mean, there are always challenges of why isn't this great coach getting an opportunity to be a head coach? Why isn't this great coach getting a second opportunity to be a head coach when others are? You've been around this as long as I have. Where are we with this, and how do we get better?
Well, where we are, Cris, is you just look at the numbers. And hey, I was fortunate this year to get another opportunity, but the numbers are down. There were times earlier in my career where I think there were 8 men leading teams that looked like me. And then all of a sudden, they're down to pretty much 1 or 2. On why that happens, I mean, and what's that saying? I mean, what is that saying? And that we can't lead? No, I think we can lead. There are qualified coaches out there, but it comes down to a matter of preference on, who you feel comfortable with. And I don't have any of the answers on why, but I know there are a lot of qualified black men that look like me that can lead NFL franchises.
Does the conversation ever change until the makeup in the ownership of the NFL changes? I mean, right?
We were like, okay, glasses half full. Glasses half full. Yeah, if we get some black representation and ownership positions, maybe that will change it. But I don't know now. I kind of, history kind of tells you, and what's happening right now is just where we are. Maybe, Cris, where we are in society too. There's a time when, maybe in the 70s, we saw progress being made and seemed like we've taken a step back in so many different ways. You would think sports would be one that's leading in the forefront. And the NFL, you look at an NFL, most of the NFL, you see black athletes, a lot of, it's about our product we put on the field. I guess I'm throwing out a lot of things just like you are. I do not know the reason why it's that way. And to think that it's going to get a whole lot better, I don't know. This is and we all have to kind of analyze what we can do to help. What I can do to help as a black man leading an NFL franchise is that there are qualified people out there. To me, some of us are in the fourth quarter of our career, and it's about the young people coming into the profession. We don't want them to be discouraged. And I make a point of going beyond to try to find young black guys that want to get into the coaching profession, to put them in positions where they can show exactly what they can do. Our offensive coordinator, we hear an awful lot, right, Cris, about black offensive coordinators in the league. Well, Pep Hamilton is a black offensive coordinator in the league. and he will be calling offensive plays for us. He's as smart as anyone around.
He is.
When we get in positions like this, we need to do well for people. And then maybe people will look at our model and say, yeah, we can do that. Because eventually I think all owners want their teams to be successful.
This year was very interesting for me as a former wide receiver to watch the amount of money flowing into our position, our collective position, right? Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, like, here we go. The people finally sold their souls to get the best players at that position, and teams were ultimately, they crossed some threshold with the Green Bay Packers and with the Kansas City Chiefs. You had that decision to make this year as well. Your organization did with Brandon Cooks. He got $36 million guaranteed for a couple of years. Tell me about the decision and exactly what's happening now with that position.
Well, first off, that's where the league is going. And you mentioned those guys, they're game changers, and everybody wants a game changer. You mentioned Brandon Cooks, ultimate leader, shows up every day, just does it the right way. And he's a good football player. He can impact the game. So I understand receivers starting to get that type of money, just like the quarterback is getting paid too. And now I'm going to go back to why we chose to draft Derek, use the third pick. Someone has to be able to get in front of those guys. And that's why, to me, the next crop would be the cornerbacks getting paid more and more, because what we ask them to do, and there's more receivers, I think, really good receivers, than there are really good cornerbacks out there. But that's where our game is going also, which should be just great for the fans.
Yeah, the AFC South in general has really taken a turn for the interesting here. Matt Ryan over to Indianapolis now. You've got to think that that's going to be a nice little pop for them. AJ Brown leaves the division, which probably didn't break your heart. He goes on to Philadelphia. Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. The South was in the news a little bit. Anything stick out to you as far as the changes in the South? Because it had sort of been, a sort of battle between Indianapolis and Tennessee, and then Houston and Jacksonville at the next level. Your take now on the South?
Well, being, again, 1 year in it, Tennessee was the best team in AFC last year, and we split with them and had an opportunity to beat them a second time. So AFC, we feel good about eventually getting into the mix. Whenever you mentioned Trayvon Walker, first player in the draft, when he goes someplace, that has to get your attention. And I really liked him as a football player, also as a defensive lineman. And you also mentioned Matt Ryan. Of course, he's been a great quarterback. When all-time great quarterbacks, has done so much for our game. So for one of our teams to also add him to the mix just says that we have to keep our talent level coming up. It's going to be a competitive division, and that's the NFL. To me, teams that some may have ranked, fairly low, they can make that climb. And then just NFL in general, of each year, that cycle seemed like somebody that was down, The
Bengals.
And Cris, your team. I mean, the Bengals last year, they had 4 wins the year before, like we did. So it just kind of gives you hope on what can happen. And then for us, when the schedule came out, you had the draft, and then you had the schedule coming out. And for us, you don't need a lot to motivate you, but in our case, when you get a chance to play a division opponent at home to start your season, you can kind of see now what you have to, what you're kind of shooting for. And I mentioned how the AFC went for us last year. The Colts dominated us last year. So I know our guys are anxious to see if we can, be more competitive this year.
Something tells me you will. You got you saved my butt. I came out strong on Kenyon Green in the draft, and everybody was beating me up a little bit. And I said, I'm just telling people that I am only about pass protection. At the end of the day, I want to see somebody who can stand in front of anybody else for at least 2.5 seconds and not get humiliated. And I thought Kenyon Green had some of the best pass protection skills and quick feet that I saw. You guys take him with the number 15 pick. Obviously, you thought highly of him too.
Yes, we did. George Warhop, Hal Hunter, our offensive line coaches, we all were in agreement. Pep Hamilton, we liked him. He's a local guy too, and just more research you did as we're building, you have to take care of your lines. And I love protection also. We talk about Davis Mills and what he can do. First, it's about getting that, solidifying that offensive line. We have some veterans, of course, in Laramie Tonsel and Titus Howard, but to get a young guard in there, we were just related a little bit when we had an opportunity to take him. He's in our facility now, growing, and he's going to help us, eventually going to help us win a lot of games.
Start at guard? Well, he moved start at guard because he looked like he had tackle feet where he could, if needed, make that adjustment too.
Well, we'll keep Titus and Larry out at the tackle position. And yes, Kenyon will be playing guard for us this year.
Beautiful. Now, final question for you. 365 days from now, when you're coach of the year and I'm begging you and I'm having to pay you NIL money to get you back on the program, what happened? How did it get there? How can this team be the Cincinnati Bengals, show up in the Super Bowl? Give me what has to happen for this football team.
Well, Cris, last year I didn't think we were good enough talent-wise too. We need to do a better job coaching. I didn't think we were good enough to really contend talent-wise. That's why I mentioned Nick Caserio earlier. We're on the same page on what we're looking for, the profile they were looking for at every position. And our talent level is better. I love our coaching staff. So it's talent, and then it's coaching staff. You start with those two things. I love both of them, and that's how we're going to do it. We saw signs, but right now we're just going to be out of sight, out of mind a little bit. Working on our craft behind the scene, and that's how. And we go back to the Bengals. I think it helps when you see that someone else has done it and the way they did it. Behind the scene, nobody gave them a lot of credit, but you can do that in NFL. I mean, everybody has the same salary cap, so you can pay money, legally, of course, in NFL, you can. So that's how we're going to do.
Bengals didn't make a single appearance on Sunday Night Football until the Super Bowl. So, hey, who's to say? This could be it. This could be the story. Lovie, it's always a great pleasure, my friend, to talk with you, and always cheering for you and wishing nothing but the best.
Anytime at all, Cris. You're a football guy, man. We love talking football with you. Take care.